Wicked dances through life at the box office. Daniel Craig may join the DC Universe. A Loki Season 2 deleted scene mentions new characters. And we discuss which hero we'd invite to Thanksgiving. All that and more on this week's Multiverse News. Welcome to Multiverse News, your source for information about all your favorite fictional universes. My name's Matthew Carroll, and with me on the panel today, we have Jay Sisson. What's happening, Jay Sisson?
Hey, in this week of thankfulness, I am thankful for this show and this amazing community of listeners that we have that hang out with us every week. But most of all, I'm thankful for you three and that we get to do this every week.
Aww. You started it all sweet, Jay. I don't know where to go from here. It's not touching real emotions.
You went with me first, you know? I mean, it is what it is.
And Haley Hobbs, what's happening?
Well, of course, we're thankful for you too, Jay. And yeah, we have some really fun things to talk about this week, and it's a week to celebrate both geeky news and turkey. Or whatever you like to eat.
That's good. Yeah, no, absolutely. And J. Scotty St. Clair.
Yeah, I was not prepared for all this sweetness up top. So normally we say you stay classy, but I feel like we have to say you stay sappy.
Oh, wait. Why'd you have to ruin it, Scotty?
Sappy doesn't have to be like negative.
That's true.
It has a little bit of a connotation, but
yeah, a little bit of connotation. But no, we have to turn away from the sappiness because we got a show to do here. We got to get our like elbow pads on and like get ready to like fight over all these things we're going to talk about.
We got to talk glicked up in here. Is that what we're going with? Are we going with glicked? The media never decided. It kept asking, like, should we call it glicked? Should we call it gladiator? I don't know. But
they knew it was mediocre.
There's just, you can never create another Barbenheimer. I mean, it's just, it's too smooth. Just can't do it.
Rolls off the tongue. Well, this week we got a 5-star review from Steve West. Thanks, Steve. Said, man, I love this podcast 3000. Great work every week, everyone.
Aw. We're thankful for Steve.
Absolutely. Thanks, Steve.
Very grateful.
That.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning that's actually a 5-star Spotify comment. So a lot of times we do our 5-star Apple reviews, but we appreciate and we are thankful to all our listeners on Spotify that leave us lovely comments.
Yeah, for sure. The Spotify community on this show is really a lot bigger than more outsized than other shows we do. Like iTunes or Apple, I always still call it iTunes. Apple tends to be like way bigger, but we appreciate all the activity we get over on Spotify from this show. So thanks, guys. Let's get into our first story. As we mentioned, the glicket of it all. It wasn't quite the box office battle Hollywood wanted it to be this weekend with with Wicked and Gladiator II going toe-to-toe in movie theaters. The musical movie adaptation soared with a nearly $114 million domestic opening, making it the biggest premiere ever for a Broadway movie adaptation. Into the Woods previously held that title, opening to just $31 million in 2014. Internationally, Wicked raked in an additional $50.2 million, giving it a total opening of $164 million, while Gladiator II limped behind the musical phenomenon domestically, opening to $55.5 million. It succeeded in the international market to the tune of $165.5 million and overtook Wicked's worldwide box office significantly due to opening 1 week earlier internationally. Glicked wasn't the Barbenheimer we know and love, but it sure did help boost box office all over the world. Who was enchanted or entertained by this?
Well, last year I participated in Barbenheimer, and this year I participated in Glicked. I'm sure that's to no one's surprise. And while Glicked did not reach the heights of Barbenheimer, I came away pretty impressed with one of these movies, not the other. So let's start by talking about Wicked. Went into this one without having seen the Broadway play, never read the book. I believed in the buzz and the fervor that was kind of building around it, but I will admit that I kind of went in with measured expectations. And I shiz you not, the hype is real. The hype is real. Like, I was swept up in the magic. John M. Chu, he's 2 for 2 with musicals for me. I know In the Heights did not do all that well theatrically. It was one of those day and date releases, so it suffered a little bit there. But the camera work, the musical numbers, the performances, the world building, the stagecraft, the choice to include so many practical effects, Cynthia Erivo's performance, Ariana Grande delivering on the comedic front, like this was an amazing film, and I highly, highly recommend it. But I will say, if you are sensitive to the theater experience, you may want to hold off a couple of weeks on this one, because I went and saw this thing, and while there was nobody outright like belting to any of these songs, there were definitely some people that I will describe as having main character energy in the theater, which is difficult for someone like me, but I got through it. Gladiator II, on the other hand, it did not do anything to offend me, but it just did not justify its existence to me. It was really, really paint by numbers, to the point that it just kind of felt lackluster and pointless. And I'm actually kind of surprised, like looking back, I remember some like early reviews and press screenings were talking about this might be like an awards contender. I just do not see it. It's better than Napoleon, but at this point, I think Ridley Scott really needs to look at his screenplays before he decides to put anything else out there, especially when it's like highly valued properties and IP that, still gives some names some value. He doesn't want to tarnish that reputation anymore. But I'm curious to hear what everybody else thinks about these performances and the whole Glicked phenomenon. And let's get into it.
You're stronger than me, Scotty. So when I do finally see Wicked, I'll look to the western sky in honor of you. That's a lyric joke. Anyway, I'm not gonna have time to see these movies, unfortunately, like for a while. It's just the way my schedule is right now, and I'm okay with that for a lot of the reasons about Wicked that Scotty talked about. Is I do just want to enjoy it without people thinking that they are Ariana Grande or Cynthia Erivo, or that they got to play them on their high school stage or whatever. Like, I don't need that in my viewing experience. I'm glad people can enjoy things that way, but when I go to a movie theater, I just don't want that. Like, I just want to watch the movie. So I definitely won't be seeing it, but I knew this would be huge. The comparison in the article and that we talk about is to Into the Woods, which is from it is 10 years ago, which is crazy. And movie musicals since then, Hamilton aside, because it was streaming only, I think, on Disney Plus. I can't remember if Hamilton was in theaters or not, but
I don't think so.
They just haven't succeeded that much. But Wicked is a very unique show, and when it was very popular back in 2005, it was, if you were in music of any kind, like, it was in the zeitgeist. You knew about Stephen Schwartz's lyrics, you knew about Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth being the leads, and so it was huge. So I knew this would be huge for people my age and older who grew up with that show, and then younger people who were discovering it with popular leads that they love, including Jonathan Bailey. So yeah, I'm not surprised by this. I did see a quote earlier today from the marketing director for this film, and that they took Barbie as an example of how to market this film. And I know a few weeks ago I said that Wicked is everywhere. It's in all these products, it's in all these lines, and it was all over my algorithm. Just because it wasn't all over some other people's doesn't mean it wasn't huge. And I think that their campaign worked, and the numbers speak for themselves. So I'm glad they're both doing well, and I want to see them both. I just kind of want to see them alone.
The marketing for this movie was unlike anything we've ever seen. I mean, Barbie did it, but Barbie walked so Wicked could run. With the pairing of the film with product lines was just on another level. Like, if you went to Target and paid attention, or if you watched commercials and paid attention, they just were infusing the palette of the pink and the green and all of that into makeup and food, and even like car commercials had Wicked connections. And I mean, it was everywhere, and it was masterful. I mean, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that because of the success that you mentioned, Barbie, and then obviously with this, it's clearly paid off, and it was going on months in advance. Like, there was a clear plan of a buildup of marketing for this movie, and now it's out there. It's got the A cinema score. People are going to keep seeing it. Gladiator, on the other hand, has a B cinema score, which is not great for a big franchise movie. For a franchise movie, you want to be A minus. B plus is like you're getting a little bit nervous, but to get a B, it just tells you that people are sort of leaving the theater and saying what you said, Scotty. They're kind of walking away saying, I don't know if I'd see this again. I don't know if I'd tell my friends to go see this. I think I might tell them to wait for streaming or whatever. And that's a sign here of two very different properties. One that is going to ascend over the next couple weekends. It was just reported today that Wicked had a record Monday, raked in about $16 million domestically on Monday, which is very high for a Monday.
That's people trying to avoid people singing in the theater.
Yeah, exactly.
That is people going on like off nights. I bet it'll have a record Tuesday, a record Wednesday.
Yeah. It'd be like, it's the weirdest thing ever. Like a record number of people saw it at 11 a.m. on Wednesday. Like it's like, but
you know their plan didn't work. There's still a lot of people in those theaters.
I was gonna say you gotta wait for like 8 weeks later.
Because you got the other person that's like, oh, I'm gonna go see it at 11 a.m. so I can sing.
Yeah, so I can sing my heart out.
But I think the conversation around the theater is really interesting, especially as we move through November. Moana 2 is just on the horizon. That movie's coming out here just in a matter of days. And so you've got that being thrown into the mix. But I think if you're Wicked, I think you're feeling fine about that. You're looking at that and saying, you bring it on, Disney. Like we here at Universal are coming for your Thanksgiving week, which has traditionally been a Disney week. Like that's when their big releases have come out. And a lot of other productions have stayed away, and theater and studios have stayed away from that week because they don't want to get into the Disney of it all. And so now it's dominated by Universal, by this other studio, and I think we're looking ahead to next November. Well, Wicked 2 is coming out next November in this same spot. It's coming out right around Thanksgiving, and it'll dominate again. It'll be even bigger whenever Wicked 2 comes out. Now, Disney at this moment has Zootopia on the schedule. I don't even know what number this is, 3, 4, something like that. So, I mean, we can workshop it now. Are we thinking like Wootopia? Are we thinking like I don't know how to make it work, but that's on the horizon for next November. And you know, if I'm Disney, I'm like, let's get out of here. Like, let's put something else here because I just don't want to put these movies up against one another. But we've talked about Moana 2, and is it going to clash with Wicked? Are you going to have a similar audience? But I mean, it's proven that this particular movie is a roaring success and is going to hold strong and continue to have strong weekends here going forward, I would imagine, for the rest of November and beyond.
It's interesting because there's Disney people who love Disney musicals, and then there's Broadway people, and there's a lot of crossover there. Obviously, they're just musical fans, but I do think there are slightly different audiences there. I think there's like the theater kids who love Broadway, and then there's the kind of like family types that love their Disney stuff, and obviously lots of crossover, but I don't think I don't think the Venn diagram is a circle. I think there's some separation there. But the thing about Wicked, with all the colors and the theme and the princess vibe and the witch vibe, like it kind of feels Disney-esque, even if it isn't, which I think like brings in some of that crowd. Well, and it's Wizard of Oz. It's also a classic movie. You know, like it's something that like if you don't care anything about, there are people who just went to see, you know, every version of Wizard of the Oz. Was Oz the Great and Powerful a few years ago, and just because they love Wizard of Oz movies, you know. So I think it's got a lot going for it. A couple marketing things that I find interesting. One of the things that we had going into Barbenheimer was this idea of the two styles. Like they had a lot of people being like, are you Barbie or are you Oppenheimer? And like, what are you going to wear to the theater and how that could affect? But in this, like, Wicked has that built into its own thing. Every piece of product placement I saw was like, are you the good witch or are you the bad witch? You know, like, are you green or pink? Like, there's this whole thing. And I think that in itself took over the narrative to where it didn't need Gladiator to differentiate itself from something else. It had its own, like, internal struggle that you could have and still stay within that movie. I think it's really clever. It almost like houses with Harry Potter, where you have these, like, you know, these things. Yeah, I'm a fan of this movie, but I'm a fan of that part of it. You know, it's just a very interesting thing to kind of pit your fans against each other in a way, but it still just brings it up even more. And the other thing is, why don't they have sing-along theaters? Do they have that? That's got to be a thing, right?
They're going to do those. They're just doing it later, and
Makes
they
total
should have
sense.
done it first.
They should have done it first. They should do, like, literally, like, this is a sing-along theater, this is a silent theater. Like, they should just have that distinction on the,
Which,
like,
you don't have to
times.
be silent during a movie,
Sure,
but I
sure,
just
sure.
don't want you singing the entire catalog next
Sure.
to me. Like,
Well, you could also have, like, regular or something. I don't know. I just think, funneling people to a sing-along theater would be a really smart move.
they're doing those showings. It's just like, you should have done this first. Like, because people were so hyped for this movie, and that's what they want to go do, and whatever. I mean,
It also would just be a completely different communal experience for people to go to. I mean, like, I would go if they did a Hamilton, if they ever do a Hamilton that's actually like a movie and not just the stage performance. I will be there, and I will have a really hard time not singing every word. I love that, and yeah, they should absolutely do this and sing along.
They will. They will.
They will.
they're learning. The Eras Tour movie, I think, taught them they need to do more of that.
Well, Rocky Horror Picture
Honestly.
Show, that's been running for like how many years?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Sure.
The person who did marketing for this movie, though, like, just kind of bringing it back to that, like, they did such little tiny things too. Like, one that really stood out to me is if you bought your ticket on certain sites, I think it was on the AMC site, they show you the seat that you've taken, and it's usually just whited out. But with Wicked, if you bought a ticket, it turned it into like a little witch hat or something. Like, it made like a little,
that's cute.
and so now, like, for Nosferatu now, it's turning it into little coffins, because it's like they're realizing, like, wait a minute, people, they want the little thing to pop up when they've bought the ticket or whatever, and they'll screenshot it and they'll share it, and it just gets the conversation going. It's just
little
like
treat.
the little detail.
Little
That's such
bit
a
of
tiny.
dopamine.
It's such a
exactly.
tiny detail, but stuff like that, like, that's the stuff that they're thinking about that other people aren't. It's just
Yeah,
like
that's
little
clever.
teeny tiny little things that just stack and add up to where people are like, I got to see this in the theater. I can't wait for streaming for this one.
Well, and that's the thing is, it's interesting about that is the witch's hat or the Nosferatu head or whatever. It's not about you seeing that movie. If you're doing that, you've already seen that movie. That is an idea that is trying to perpetuate the idea that the movie-going experience is something novel and interesting, and it cares about your experience. And like you do it once, and you're like, oh, it gave me little witches hats. That's cool. I wonder what this movie will do. Like you want to go to the next one. It gets you. It's about bringing back theaters and like. Seeing that experience have all these little novelties that it needs to survive,
It's the event phenomenon, and we've been talking about that since Barbenheimer, that to be truly, truly phenomenal at the box office, your movie has to be an event. And Wicked has been the event, and Gladiator II just hasn't. You haven't seen all the same buzz around it and people dressing up and stuff like that. So
It's hard to dress up like that, though.
yeah, it is.
That's a lot of dedication.
You might get kicked out.
I'm just
I want to see
saying.
a guy in full gladiator garb come out of the theater.
Is this how Rome treats its heroes?
And nobody dressed up like that to go to Oppenheimer either. But it's like, which one's gonna
I saw a couple.
win out?
Yeah, I think some people did, like, just to
Not
be
like they did for
counter
Barbie. That was
to the
my
Barbie.
point. Similar with Wicked. So anyway.
Hey, Ridley Scott, just to bring Gladiator into this conversation for a minute, is already talking about the script for Gladiator 3, so just be prepared for that at some point. He did say it will not take 30 years like the last one, but I guess they are talking about it, and his budget was out of control for Gladiator 2. Like, it was absolutely outrageous, and they're going to make their money back, I think, just based on this opening weekend, but it's not going to be a lot. Like, they're going to probably just break even on Gladiator 2 because the budget was so high. But still, that if you're Ridley Scott, that probably gets you a third one, I guess, if you can get the people back together. So that's something to look for on the horizon.
Well, Jay, you mentioned Moana 2 opening next weekend, and I think Gladiator 2 will continue to benefit from some counter programming. The people that just don't want to check out Wicked, they're not going to see Moana 2. It might benefit from that, but the review embargoes for Moana 2 are lifting like as of today, as of this afternoon, and it's coming in pretty lukewarm, so that will be one to keep an eye on. It'll be interesting to see if it does present a problem for Wicked or any real competition, because the reviews are coming in kind of soft, but that one has been such a juggernaut on Disney Plus. I just have to wonder if the families are going to go out in droves for that one or not.
Yeah, usually you wait usually your review embargo, you want that to lift like a week or two before the movie because you really want the positive buzz to get out there and people talking about, oh, the Rotten Tomatoes score is this and that and whatever. But with Moana 2, they did the red flag thing of pushing the review embargo until basically the day the movie comes out, which is not... It's just not a good sign. It means that they want you to not be talking about the reviews. So I think probably Disney knew on some level that the reviews were not going to necessarily do them favors in the conversation, especially while you've got all of this discussion around Wicked and Gladiator and all of these other movies. It's just you run the risk of yours getting lost if it comes out with a Rotten Tomatoes score of like 65% or something. It just kind of can get lost in the conversation. But the families are big here for sure.
J. Scotty, you saw Gladiator. Did you find it to just be, you said paint by numbers, was it very much like similar to the first one? Was it just a little too close? Was it a retread too much?
It did the thing that a lot of legacy sequels do, where it wants to pay a lot of homage to the original, even in terms of like the construction of the narrative, but this one just felt hollow. It felt like it was aping it and not really like doing it in a tactful or way that really honored it. It's just like, oh, this worked 20, 30 years ago, right? Let's do it for maybe somebody that, didn't see that movie, or it's going to be enough for that one guy that loves Gladiator. They'll be like, oh, member berries. But I was kind of harsh on my review, and I have to address this comment because It's Just K said it didn't justify its existence as a savage comment, and then TV and Movie Guy said, I hope I don't have to live by that standard. And it did remind me, this is a little insight into my life, and probably sharing too much, but it reminds me, my grandfather, loved my grandfather, but he was a Marine, so he's kind of a hardcore dude. Once me and a few of my cousins had all reached like a certain age of like early 20s adulthood, he like had all of us in his house, and he asked us that question: what are you doing to justify your existence? And we all just like looked at each other like, did our grandfather really just ask us this?
Wait, was it Thanksgiving Day too?
No, it wasn't
on theme with our show today.
He wasn't that harsh. He was pretty harsh, but not that harsh.
That's amazing.
To say something positive about Gladiator 2, though, it does have some truly epic action set pieces. There are a couple that really impressed me, but that's really all that stuck out about the movie.
Yeah, it's always disappointing to me. It reminds me of Force Awakens a little bit, where like, it's been a long time since we had a Star Wars movie. Let's retread the first one. Let's really retread what we've done in the past to bring it back. And that's like a thing you can do. But when it's the same director, it just feels cheap to me. It's like you'd think you'd want to like blaze new trails thematically, story-wise, and not just retread. And that's the reason I ask about it at all is Jeff said the same thing on MCU Gas we were talking about, and he said the same, that it just felt like a retread of the first. Yeah,
Star Wars is actually a really good comparison, The Force Awakens specifically, and I'll tread lightly for spoilers here, but the convenience of how connected certain characters are, and just like how certain items show up in certain locations, it's just like, come on, like you're straining the my ability to believe here.
Yeah, I just don't think Gladiator is that kind of universe. You know what I mean? It's
right,
not like
exactly.
It's not like a franchise universe in my head. It could be an interesting thing to make a sequel of. There's a difference between I know literally there's not, but like there's a difference between the kind of franchise that Star Wars or Marvel are and the kind of movie that just has sequels. And I think, I don't know what exactly that distinction is, but there's something about like world building and living in a different kind of environment. And I know that Gladiator is, but it's also just the past. I don't know. There's just something interesting there that I don't have fully fleshed out thoughts on, but I think there's something there. Somebody else figure it out.
I can't, because then I would have to justify my existence. And I'm not ready to do that yet.
We'll figure it out on the sequel for Multiverse News.
Good. All right, well, let's move on to the next story. The blonde Bond himself, Daniel Craig, is a potential star for the feature film Sergeant Rock, which is in development with DC Studios. While nothing is known about the plot, the character first appeared in comics in 1959 as a World War II soldier and was created by Robert Kanigher and Joe Kubert. Challenger's director, Luca Guadagnino, is set to direct, and his screenwriting collaborator on both Challengers and the upcoming film Queer, Justin Kurtzis, will pen the script. With these few details to go on, does this news rock our world?
You know, this was not on my 2024 bingo card that there would be a Sergeant Rock movie, which is a character that I don't know about you all. I had never heard of before, and I had no basis of information in. And as I read about the fact that he was a World War II soldier, I was like, there has to be something more. He's a DC character. What's his thing? What's his shtick? What's his superpower? And no, he is just a World War II soldier. And the idea that we are going to bring this character into the DCU under very interesting choices for director with Luca Guadagnino and Daniel Craig is really fascinating to me. I think whenever James Gunn took over as the head of DC Studios, the conversation that we had a lot was how James Gunn has a tendency to focus a little bit, maybe too much, on deep cut characters and really lean into deep cut characters. Now, if you want to look at that negatively, you could say, okay, the problem is with that is that people will not really want to see movies with deep cut characters or really deep cut characters. If you want to look at it positively, I think we could say James Gunn has had a lot of success with deep cut characters in his career. I mean, think of the characters he has made interesting that we hadn't heard of. Like, think of like what he did for Peacemaker. Think of what he did for Groot. Think of what he did for Polka Dot Man and Suicide Squad. Like, he made Polka Dot Man interesting. And one of the most interesting parts of that movie. And so he has success with that, of just like choosing these like really random, sometimes backwards characters, putting them on screen and making us go, wow, that's a really interesting character. But at the same time, you do, I think, have to ask yourself, looking at this proposal of a film, because we don't know, is it going to be connected to the DCU? Is it going to feel like a standalone thing? We really don't know anything about that. But I think you have to ask the question, like, is there going to be a huge audience lining up to see a superhero movie about kind of a non-superhero that's a really basically unknown character? Like, will the audience be there for that? Now, I choose to look at this and be interested in it because I really like Daniel Craig, and I really like what I've seen from Luca Guadagnino as a director. And then again, with James Gunn and his success with some of these smaller characters, I choose to be excited about this overall. Daniel Craig is also the star of the movie that you mentioned a second ago, Queer, which is positioning itself as an awards contender. And Daniel Craig is the star of that film. So these two want to work together again on something else, which is a connection just to note. But yeah, I mean, it's this bizarre thing. Like, it's a story that you kind of have to read the headline a couple times, but I think it does show us a little bit of just what we can expect, I think, from this DC universe as we move forward, is that really no characters are off limits.
Yeah. One of the really interesting things to me about this is we've already got this GI robot in Creature Commandos, and he's constantly talking about killing Nazis or whatever. So, like, then this character is a World War II soldier. I don't know if they're going to recontextualize that and he'll be a soldier in some other war, or this is going to be another, like this is going to be placed in that time period. And is Creature Commandos in general, I think that's going to be modern times, but I'm guessing there'll be some flashbacks for G.I. Robot, or we'll get some context of his career. It's just weird that they're building sort of like stuff going on in World War II. I don't know. That's interesting. And also kind of weird. Like, it's just going to be, are we going to be telling the story of Sergeant Rock while there are superheroes that exist in that world? Because we know that Superman is not the only superhero, and the superheroes have been around, it seems, for a while. So, like, will there be an alternate World War II where superheroes existed, kind of like a Wonder Woman type thing? I don't know. It's just interesting. But generally, just good talent. I have not seen either of Luca Guadagnino's movies, but the one and the one that's not out yet. But I've heard good things. So it seems like quality talent on both in front of and behind the screen. So that's can't be all bad.
Am I the only one that was part of Sergeant Rock's Lonely Rockers here? Steeped in the traditions and characters of Sergeant Rock?
Hey, this guy's a real Sergeant Rockhead.
Obviously joking. Never had any familiarity with the character. I might have heard of the character in passing. with my exposure to DC. But I really like the discussion that's taken place so far. I think, Jay, you had a really good take in terms of choosing to be positive, because on the surface, this is definitely just, you pitch this and it makes me scratch my head a little bit. But I think there really is a potential to do something really interesting. And maybe I'm reading a little bit too much into things, but I noticed like the log line did not really say anything about the DCU or the DC universe. It just said DC Studios. And that may be by way of just not having much information about this film at all. But again, when, James Gunn was made the head of this studio, he talked about how it was going to be a filmmaker auteur-driven studio, and they were going to empower filmmakers to use their voices and not really be, beholden to the constraints that come with a giant studio machine like that. So, yeah, looking at Luca Guadagnino and his track record, it's tough not to have the question, like, coming off a queer, like, is Sergeant Rock going to be gay? That's just kind of where my mind goes. Like, if you take this character that's supposed to be all macho and rah-rah, gung-ho, and kind of do a takedown of some toxic masculinity, could be a really interesting story, and I think that's right up Luca Guadagnino's alley. So I had kind of just operated under the assumption that this would take place during World War II as well as Creature Commandos, but Matt, you stirred something in my memory. I remember one of the showrunners involved said something about the Eastern Bloc influences, so that made me think maybe this is actually going to be set during the Cold War, which would actually maybe line up a little bit better in terms of Rick Flag Sr. being, Rick Flag Jr.'s father there. And then, that could, open up the door. Maybe Sergeant Rock takes place in Vietnam, because I just don't see Luca Guadagnino wanting to do something like World War II that's been visited so much in film. He'd probably want to do something. And Vietnam's been visited a lot in film, but not, that's just kind of where my mind goes.
Yeah, it's interesting. Wasn't Amanda Waller in the trailer for Creature Commandos, though? Isn't she saying, like, we're not allowed to use humans anymore, so we're using monsters? And that's, like, the whole plot. So I took that as, this is post-Suicide Squad, but I may be wrong. Like, Suicide Squad didn't go so well, Starro destroyed whatever, so now we have to go with monsters instead of humans. But it also might be a time travel thing, because there's also maybe timeline shifting going on, so who knows?
Yeah, I had completely forgotten that Amanda Waller was in that trailer, but you're right. That's a good point.
She's the head of it, and I think it's either... Yeah, I don't think she's that much different in age either. So I think like it's somewhere around the time of Suicide Squad.
Sure.
Of course, that's a different universe. So who knows? Amanda Waller may exist in World War II in this version. Who knows? The whole thing, the whole DCU might be happening in the 40s. I don't know.
There have been a couple attempts to bring Sergeant Rock to the screen as well.
Weird.
There have been 2 times. The first time Arnold Schwarzenegger was attached, and the second time Bruce Willis was attached. So there have been a couple attempts up until this point to bring this character out there.
I wonder if it's going to be... I don't know anything about this character. I looked it up ever so briefly. He's in the Army, World War II, NCO. Okay, great. I wonder if it's going to be like James Gunn's antithesis to Captain America.
That's interesting.
Like, yeah, I've got this guy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Really
I don't
highlight
know.
the difference in the two studios. Like,
Yeah.
really like, no, this is what World War II is like. You know?
No, I need a World War II soldier character. Find him for me. And they're like, well, we got this guy. He's just a soldier. He's like, it'll do.
And
It'll
Luca Guadagnino likes to do evocative things, so that could play into his wheelhouse pretty well. I could also see it being very like humorous and glossy, and on the subject of musicals, like I could see it having some campy element to it that could be really fun and would fit very much in line with what we've seen from James Gunn so far.
Yeah. All right. Well, that one's going to be interesting to follow for sure. Up next, we have in a deleted scene from season 2 of Loki, part of an impending 4K UHD Blu-ray release. Loki recalls how many people said Loki was a problem while talking with his friend Mobius over slices of key lime pie. After listing many names, Loki also brings up 2 villains from Marvel Comics that audiences have not yet encountered in the MCU. The first is Amora, also known as Enchantress, and the second is Absorbing Man, who began life as a boxer named Carl Creel, a character seen in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Until Loki poisons him with an elixir that gives him the ability to transform his body into the quality of anything he touches. At the very end, Loki brings up Hercules, who appeared in the post-credit scene for Thor: Love and Thunder. Let's discuss these TVA tidbits.
I remember this scene, not word for word, but I remember it's a very emotionally packed scene in Loki season 2, I think, when they're eating the pie and he's talking about all the mistakes that he's made and why people think he's the villain. And so it's easy from that point of view to see why these mentions were cut, because it kind of waters down what that scene eventually became about that we saw on the screen. But it is interesting that they were even going to go this far. Amora, it would be fascinating that they would mention her because Sylvie's powers were very similar to Enchantress, and that comparison was made a lot from season 1 and season 2. And then Carl Creel is such a vastly different character than these other two mentioned of Amora and Hercules. He's a very street-level character. He belongs very much like in the Netflix Marvel world, and so I think it would have muddied the waters. It's probably a very good edit that somebody took this out, but they were going to go there and they were going to like expand into these character roles and then leave more threads hanging, which would have made us all really angry probably. So I'm glad it was cut. And I think it also lends to the king of it all and all of the challenges that they had with editing that season of that show to deal with the Jonathan Majors stuff. And so what it ultimately did was great because it left Loki season 2 at a great stopping point, or a place where you could continue and maybe meet these characters.
Yeah, it's interesting. We mentioned it in the thing, but like this character was shown. Creel, Crusher Creel, was shown in Agents of Shield and Absorbing Man, and the Enchantress's sister Lorelei was in Agents of Shield for an episode, and so like these characters were danced around in Agents of Shield, and it's just interesting because I wonder if this was just cut because it didn't match the vibe, like you were talking about, how this was a really emotional scene. Maybe they didn't want to end it on a joke. And also, I just, based on, like, it almost felt like, I'm sure it wasn't, but, like, it almost felt like Hiddleston was just, like, saying names. Like he was, like when he said Donald Blake, and then it was, like, that's the guy Thor pretends to be. And it's, like, it almost felt like, Hiddleston was naming characters that he'd read in the comics or something. It almost didn't feel like
it almost felt Thor once.
Yeah, it almost felt improvised to me, and I wonder how much of that scene they wrote and how much they let him like just keep naming people and sort of like joking about it because it's just how it felt to me. But I don't know.
Yeah, Haley, I like what you brought up about giving credit to like some editor that kind of went through with a fine-tooth comb and found these references that are nice on the surface, but in the greater context, do they really work? And to that end, I want to give Brad Winterbaum some credit because I think this is a direct result of his leadership and kind of coming through. And I wouldn't say that the ship was ever like off kilter or off course, but you know he has righted the ship to some degree. And you guys mentioned Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I thought about, we've got Daredevil Born Again right around the corner this spring. And we've seen more and more about how that series is actually going to be related to the previous seasons on Netflix. And I'll never forget the pilot episode of season 1. Matt, his father, was fighting Crusher Creel. So there's a reference right there as well. So if somebody comes through and, let's remove these just so those people that are like, the canon, what about the canon? Let's satisfy them.
Yeah, because we would all do the Leo meme thing. We'd all be like, there, he said the thing. Like we're not really going to focus on, like you said, Haley, what the scene is supposed to be about, which is the complicated nature of Loki's morality and how he's been remembered and interacted with other people throughout his life. That's supposed to be the focus, and instead this would have spun out all these YouTube videos about like. It's kind of like the Mephisto name drop in Agatha, where it just became like the "she said it" type thing, and it just spun off a million theories and all of that. When's he going to show up, and when's he going to pop in, and all of this. And ultimately, Marvel kind of does this. Like there's a lot of stories like this where we'll hear about Feige coming in and axing the mention of a character, or somebody wanting to use some very small scale character as a small part of a story and being told no from Marvel Studios. We know that Marvel does give their creatives a lot of control, but at the same time, Feige is extremely protective over the stable of characters that they have use of at Marvel Studios. There's a long history of that, of how, like, I'm thinking back to an old NPR investigation about, it's been a long time ago, but they tried to buy the rights of the Doorman, which is a character that can turn into a door. It's like the stupidest character ever. They tried to buy the rights of that character from Marvel Studios for like a lot of money just to prove that they could do it. And they were repeatedly told, absolutely not. We will never sell a character to anyone, because at some point, we were just talking about James Gunn using deep cut characters and giving them a voice and giving them life. You think Polka Dot Man sounds stupid, but then all of a sudden somebody comes along and they're like, hey, I've got this great idea for this character in this particular thing, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm really glad we were able to include this character, which seems stupid but paid off. So I think just that idea of, do we want to go ahead and start mentioning this person, and getting them out there? I mean, why don't we just not do that? Because at the end of the day, what if we want to use this character in a significant way down the road, and we've already mentioned them, and then it becomes messy, and it just seems easier just to scrap the whole thing. But I think these types of things are always interesting, right? Like the deleted scenes that cut the mention of characters is a fascinating thing with Marvel. It's been going on throughout their whole canonized 20-plus movie history of trying to figure out how we can make all this stuff line up and match for people like us, ultimately, of course.
Yeah.
These people.
I believe there's a version of that Nick Fury scene, if I'm not mistaken. I may be making this up. There's something like this. There's a version of that Nick Fury scene from Iron Man 1 when he steps in out of the shadows that mentions the X-Men. Like, I think he mentions
Spider-Man too. He says like bitten by radioactive bugs or something like that. Yeah.
He's like, they were cutting it way back in the first thing of the MCU.
I wonder if they'll go back and doctor the credits of The Incredible Hulk, because Martin Starr's character is actually Amadeus Cho in that movie, but then we obviously saw him in the Spider-Man films as a teacher, and then we hear there are rumors that the character of Amadeus Cho is actually planned for the future, so have to keep an eye on that one.
We didn't forget, Feige.
He knows.
We thought we forgot, but we didn't forget. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. We got a lot of more coming up after the break. We got Star Wars in the lightning round, Scream, Harry Potter, The Simpsons, plus what hero would we invite to our Thanksgiving? All that right after this. Welcome back to Multiverse News. It's so good to be here with you guys, and happy Thanksgiving. We are thankful for you. If you want to show how thankful you are for us, just go to patreon.com/multiverse newscast and just show us a little thankfulness, just a little bit, $4 a month to join our Patreon. It would really, really help keep this show growing and help keeping us doing what we do. Again, patreon.com/multiverse newscast. And turning to our Thanksgiving topic, with a holiday week comes less news, so we decided to answer a question on theme with the upcoming U.S. Thanksgiving holiday. If you could invite one fictional character from any geeky universe to your Thanksgiving dinner, who would it be, and what dish would they bring? Who wants to go first?
I guess I'll go first. I feel like I spent more time on this than I should have thinking about it, to the detriment that I did not consider the dishes that characters would bring. I thought more about like how the character might serve as a guest. So we got a lot of Marvel entries, so I will abstain from mentioning Marvel characters. But Condiment King from DC feels like it's his time to shine. How often do you want Condiment King around? Seems like, pretty good win-win scenario there. But then I'm still on the fence about this one because I don't know how it would shake out. But what's the worst part of Thanksgiving? The dishes.
Clean up.
Exactly. So I don't often, reference the Harry Potter Wizarding World, but Dobby the house elf, he's going to have no problem doing those dishes. Might make you cry a little bit, might be a little sad, but at least you got somebody taking care of the dishes.
Okay,
do not pay attention to Dobby's character arc throughout the whole Harry Potter series.
I'll give him a sock when he's done.
To that point, I had the same thought, Scotty, but I thought I'll invite Wanda. She can bring chicken paprikash, and then she can clean up everything with a snap of her fingers.
There we go.
I like it.
See, I feel like I was sort of going down the same avenue as you. I thought Superman, because Superman is just known as the, hey, I'm going to return the favor. I'm going to help somebody. I'm going to, get in and do the thing that people won't do. So, Superman's going to be in there. He's going to be doing the dishes. He grew up on a farm. That guy knows how to cook. And he'll probably invite you over next time he has a holiday. He's got to return the favor. So I feel like if you really want that full Thanksgiving experience, it's got to be Clark Kent.
Wow,
that's pretty good. Yeah, I do see the farmhouse vibe fitting that. I went with a very different direction. I went with Commander Sisko from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. He's my favorite captain. Love Commander Sisko. He later becomes a captain, so I guess Captain Sisko now, and then later becomes an ethereal being. So like he'd have to come back from whatever galactic travel he's on, but he could come, and his dad owns a Cajun restaurant, and in tons of episodes, he's like got a kitchen, and he's cooking in his quarters, and he's just a Cajun cook, and he is always laughing in kind of ridiculous ways with his son. He has this laugh that's like, like he just, I love him. He's great, and I want to hang out with Commander Sisko, Captain.
I'm
Sisko.
shocked no one chose Sergeant Rock. It just seems like
well, we know nothing about the man. He's a wild card.
Hear all those war stories.
Which war?
No one knows. All right. Well, we got a bunch of people wrote in from our Patreon. We had some of our patrons. We asked our patrons this question, so let's read a couple of their responses. Jordan Boyd said, "I'd invite Thor, hoping he'd bring the fancy alcohol, but he'd probably end up bringing something gross that because he loves it, he thinks everyone else does too, like Bill Schneip."
I love that answer.
I like that. I like that a lot. It's good.
Solid.
I
And you get the party
really,
game of trying to lift Mjolnir too. So
Yeah,
that's a good point.
it's true. It's true. You're always looking for something to do after dinner. That would be good. Eric Gannon says Thanksgiving is about family. I would invite Dominique Toretto, and he would bring Coronas. Yes, he would. Tony says I would invite Captain Marvel and would be thankful for anything that she brings, but I would hope that. I hope for chips, a.k.a. fries. Tony must be from across the pond.
Just wants Carol's presence.
Mm-hmm. It's fair. It's fair.
A true gift.
Indeed. Terza Kelm says, obviously, I'm inviting Yelena, so she brings the mac and cheese with her. Was it mac and cheese and sriracha? Was that what it was?
Mm-hmm.
I believe so, yeah.
Condiment King, he's bringing the sriracha.
there we go.
Yeah. It's already sriracha's already there with Condiment King.
You all mingle. I'm going to be over here with Yelena and Condiment King.
We're gonna try some things out. Yelena's got the creativity. He brought the condiments, so we're gonna see what happens. Daniela Forrest says, I'd invite Tony Stark because after the Avengers battle in New York, he was clearly into shawarma. He'd probably show up with a catered shawarma platter. Plus, imagine him critiquing everyone's cooking while secretly ordering a robot to make pumpkin pie that's way better than mine. Classic Stark.
It's very funny.
I like it.
Very good, Daniela. I like it a lot. Sherman Smith says, Monica Rambeau and jambalaya. We were on the same page there with some Cajun cooking.
All right.
Ted Bundy says, think there is only one correct answer. Cosmo the space dog. Adorable, speaks English, so she can tell stories from cosmic travel, will eat scraps for minimal cleanup after dinner, and she's a good dog. Maybe she can teach my dog to not be such a dick. Happy Thanksgiving to the Multiverse crew and universe. Probably would bring some sort of rare celestial wet dog food from the collector's vault.
Sounds like a great holiday.
Yeah, for sure. Let me just say about your dog, I don't think anyone is 100% a dick. So give him a chance.
Honorable mentions, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
Mysterio. Oftentimes you have your family members.
You really did
if
put
it's
a lot of thought into this.
Hey, in my family, you get people that get heated over football games.
You got a deep bench.
Yeah, you cast an illusion. Whichever team they want to win is now winning. Save some drama there. And
Would
then the
Mysterio do that though?
If you gave him, kudos and accolades and put him up on a pedestal, he'd probably be, he'd be all about it.
It's fair. It's fair.
Treat him as the entertainer he should be. And then the other one, like I said, dishes are the worst part of the holiday, but the other one are the terrible political and social opinions you get from family members, right? So Ancient One, she just comes in here. You're a person looking at the world through a keyhole and just puts them on a mind trip, and they shut up for the rest of the meal.
I don't want to go to Scotty's house anymore for Thanksgiving.
I like it, man. Just gonna put them through like a real mind-bending experience. Come out more empathetic, more like understanding of the universe and all of our connection.
Yeah. I worked retail for 5 years and worked Black Friday every single one of them, so I may have built up a little bit of a callus when it comes to Thanksgiving.
That's fair.
I bet. Oh, man.
Oh.
All right, we also have a Spotify poll this week. We said, how hyped are you for Andor Season 2? This is interesting. Not hyped, 28.9%. A little hyped, 8.9%. Average levels of hyped, 26.7%. And so hyped, got 35.6%. So that's a good, 60% of you are hyped. Well, I guess almost 70% of you are hyped. But 60% are average or more hyped. More hyped.
It's a popular
Sounds
one.
like we need some maintenance performed on some hyperdrives.
Lord.
Sorry, whatever you were going to say, Haley, I'm sure was much better than that.
I wasn't saying anything important. Nothing is more important than that.
Nope, definitely not. Puns are why we exist as a show, basically.
It's a big part of the lore.
It's a vehicle for puns to be explored. All right, well, we're going to do a lightning round, and it's going to be a lightning round, you guys. None of this last week, everybody talks about every story. Come on. We just can't do that
Hey,
much.
you're guilty, too. Go look in the mirror.
Who did that?
I don't know what you're talking about. Every time someone else started talking last week, I just started reading my old issues of Sergeant Rock and didn't do anything wrong. I didn't break any of the rules.
Poor Sergeant Rock. He's just getting kicked around.
I did see that there is a comic run where he is both at Pearl Harbor and D-Day, and it's it's a little... I mean, it's the whole... He's the European and Pacific theater. I mean...
He's anywhere he wants to be.
Dude,
like Visa.
There's a guy who commuted, I forget which way, but it was from Nagasaki to Hiroshima or vice versa, and he commuted to work that day, got hit by the first bomb enough that he got blown off his feet. So it's close enough that it threw him off his feet but didn't kill him. He got up, went home, got hit by the second bomb enough to get thrown, and survived both and lived till he was 90.
That's the real
wild.
Sergeant Rock right there. He's the real...
Yeah.
He's the real deal.
For real.
The real survivor.
It's just crazy the things that some people are
insane.
There for multiple things. It's wild. All right, well, let's get into our lightning round we mentioned. This is where I'm going to read a story, and we are going to shout out our names to claim a story if we want it to be our story to respond to, and only we get to respond to it, unless once per lightning round, you get a rebuttal. So save those for the ones you really, really want to talk about. And here we go. Disney and Lucasfilm have revealed that animated anthology series Star Wars Visions is coming back for a third volume in 2025.
Scotty, bring it on. Why didn't we get this sooner? Bring in more studios, more countries, give them their chance to give their specific flair and voice for Star Wars. So do all that, but then let's have a follow-up to The Ninth Jedi from season 1. I really, really want that. Bring back, Studio IG. Let's get a follow-up there.
Yeah. A new teaser has been released for Noah Hawley's upcoming Alien franchise series titled Alien Earth that confirms the series will arrive in summer of 2025 on FX and Hulu. Matt, this looks so scary. Just so scary. And I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting kind of tense Noah Hawley character development and there's aliens, but no, this just looked terrifying. The editing of the trailer just made it look way more horror centric than I was kind of expecting. Obviously it's the Alien franchise, but I just haven't seen, I don't know what else Noah Hawley's done. I watched Fargo and Legion, but I don't know his horror background, but I just found this to be really, really terrifying. And I'm interested to see what he can do in this world and how scared I will be when he builds these characters that inevitably I will care about so much and then puts them in these horrifying situations. Yeah. Deadline has confirmed that Suits spin-off series Suits LA will feature the return of Gabrielle Mocht, who played Harvey Specter on the original series, in a limited reprisal of his role that is being described as a 3-episode arc.
Jay, I don't think any of us really watched Suits, but I thought that we should probably...
I watched it, but not all the way through.
Yeah, we talked whenever the spinoff was confirmed about how... is there really a market for it? But then we also talked about the fact that Suits is really interesting because when they put it on Netflix, it blew up huge. Like, it's became a big social media thing. Like, people were talking about watching it from the beginning and never seeing it before and being like, what's this show? I've never heard of it before. Oh, did you know Meghan Markle's on it? And just started watching it for the first time. And so a lot of people discovered it on Netflix. And I think that ultimately is why it ended up with a spinoff, because they said, well, we got to capitalize on this. But when you do that, you do probably need to connect it to the original in some way. So the idea that, well, you're probably not going to get the main guy who is in it, because there was just an article in the Hollywood Reporter today about how he was like basically an alcoholic on the set of Suits, and he just was like, it was not a good time for him, and he's doing a lot better now, but that was not a good time in his life. You're probably not getting Meghan Markle, sorry to tell you. So at the end of the day, yeah, let's get this other guy, let's bring him in, let's do an arc, and let's get the connective tissue going a little bit here between these two things. But again, Suits is... it's not a show that I watched, but I thought the growth of it on a streaming service after it was over was really fascinating. And to see it get a spinoff from that's just kind of where we're at right now with shows. Whenever you put them on Netflix, that's what you want them to do.
Robert Pattinson and Charlize Theron have joined the cast of Christopher Nolan's upcoming untitled film. They join Tom Holland, Zendaya, Anne Hathaway, Lupita Nyong'o, and Matt Damon.
Haley? Okay. I don't know what we're doing here.
Nolan's like, you like this? Got a couple more.
I don't know. Do we, Christopher? We'll find out.
Banjay writes, the distributor for Netflix anthology series Black Mirror has struck a deal with Neil Gibson's UK-based Twisted Comics to create comics based on several of the episodes of the series.
Jay, they're describing this as the iconic episodes of the series, so not really sure what they mean. I have some guesses of the ones that they would probably adapt, but they have not given a number of ones that they will do. But I just think this is really interesting. I think Black Mirror, some of the stories of Black Mirror would make really good comics, just the way that they're told. Mm-hmm. So I think it's kind of a cool thing if you're a fan of that anthology series.
Yeah. Developer CD Projekt announced the Witcher 4 video game is now in full-scale production.
Scotty, that's developer CD Projekt Red. And this is worth mentioning because The Witcher 3 was one of the highest selling video games, critically one of the best received. It kind of changed the way we look at RPGs in terms of like open world RPGs. So everything that we saw from The Witcher kind of spun off of that, including the Netflix series, the renewed interest in the books and everything like that. Now, CD Projekt Red, they were very popular with gamers, but then they had another game come out in between called Cyberpunk 2077, and if you know anything about that one, it had a disastrous launch. They lost a lot of face, but they did their due diligence. They really worked on overhauling the game through patches and updates and stuff like that, and they put like 2 or 3 years of hard work into it, and it ended up being a quality product at the end of the game. So it'll be interesting to see. I know they just lost a lot of people with that disastrous launch, but The Witcher, like I said, it's one of the most popular video games of all time. This is a highly anticipated sequel. It'll just it'll be interesting to see if it pushes the envelope forward and how it performs.
Isabel May, best known for her role in Yellowstone prequel series 1883 and 1923, has joined the cast of Scream 7 and will play Neve Campbell's daughter.
Scotty?
Matt, go ahead.
After you.
I was just going to, if no one else had anything to say, I was just going to talk about how is she in 1883 and 1923? Is she a vampire? She's playing a relative, I'm guessing, but vampire's funnier?
Yeah, I don't know anything about this performer. I don't know how old she is, but I do find it interesting that Nev Campbell's Sydney suddenly has a daughter. I wonder how old she will be, what the story behind that was if she wasn't in the picture and she's like a teenager or young adult or something like that, how they decide to explain that one away. We'll see.
Don't you remember when they asked her, the waitress asked her, do you have any kids? And then she said, not that I know of. And it was like, oh, maybe.
It wasn't the waitress, it was Ghostface. Do you have any kids? What are their favorite scary movies?
Samuel L. Jackson is in negotiation for a key role in J.J. Abrams' untitled feature at Warner Brothers. He joins Jenna Ortega, Glenn Powell, and Emma Mackey.
Scotty, I feel like you got Nolan in his corner and Abrams in his corner. Who's going to have the more stacked cast at the end of the day? I will say Nolan's got more of a stacked cast, but these are certainly some up-and-comers, but Samuel L. Jackson lends a pedigree and gravitas. So JJ's been a little hit or miss for me in terms of his directorial features here lately, but I'll always give him a shot. I love Glenn Powell. I love all these performers. So.
In an interview about his upcoming voice role of Dr. Phosphorus in Creature Commandos, Alan Tudyk confirmed that he will also voice Clayface in the series. Tudyk also voices Clayface on Harley Quinn, the animated series, and its spin-off, Kite Man, Hell Yeah. But this version will be a new iteration of the character.
Scotty, you're getting a lot of me this lightning round, but I love that DC values Alan Tudyk as much as they do. Because he's so incredibly talented, and he deserves, to have his time in the limelight. He's an incredible physical performer as well as a voice actor. So I love what he's done with Clayface on the adult animated series. But if he's going to, potentially take on a live action version of the character, I hadn't really considered him, but I think that would be awesome. And yeah, Creature Commandos, Dr. Phosphorus. Really looking forward to that character, and it really sounds like he's going to be the character that pops up in James Gunn's Superman. So I guess the one negative I'll have here is that with Alan Tudyk's continued involvement with DC, it kind of dashes my hope for that young Hank Pym Ant-Man series I've been pitching.
Yeah. I'll do my rebuttal here and just say, Alan Tudyk as Clayface in live action would be amazing. Like he just playing that role. I feel like the actor, being turned and like not getting the roles he wanted, and then getting that power, and him being able to like transform but still have his face for certain moments. I just think he'd be really good in that role. If they wanted to go that, cat, stop meowing. What are you doing? Stop it.
Cat agrees with you.
Yeah,
the
cat's
agrees.
a huge Alan Tudyk fan.
She's like, meow, meow, meow. I'll never forgive Joss Whedon. I just think he'd be really great in that as Clayface. With Dr. Phosphorus seemingly being a character that won't really have a face, he could definitely, and Clayface may not either at some points, but it could be great in those roles, and be able to play both. HBO has entered talks with British-based VFX company Framestore to create the Wizarding World on the upcoming Harry Potter HBO series in a massive VFX contract deal. Framestore, which has won Oscars for work on Blade Runner 2049 and Gravity, provided visual effects for all 8 of the Harry Potter movies between 2000 and 2011.
Haley? Nice that they are saying exclusively you're going to continue this universe for us. I wonder if it will be visually the same. Surely they'll want to do something different than the films visually, but I wonder if all of the backlog that happened during COVID and the effects issues that we saw with the workers being put under too much strain has led to the studios being a little more careful about, okay, we're going to wrap up this contract and you're going to be our thing, and we're not going to, I wonder if there's an exclusivity to it is what I'm curious about.
Yeah. Brian Lee O'Malley, who wrote the Scott Pilgrim series of graphic novels, has confirmed that the animated series Scott Pilgrim Takes Off will not return for a season 2 at Netflix.
Scotty, this is bittersweet because I absolutely love that series. It was such a great complementary piece to the Edgar Wright film that I love so much, as well as the graphic novels that it all spun off from. But it makes me sad, but it's also, I'm not, beside myself about it, because that season is not going anywhere. Like, that is just a singular, unified season that exists there, and you don't really need to continue the story. It'd be great to, but you don't need to. So, whenever you do continue something, you run the risk of potentially it not being as good and kind of taking away from that legacy. So, we'll see how everybody involved feels a few years removed, because it seems like they all enjoy working together. The creativity's there. So maybe this isn't the end all be all for Scott Pilgrim and Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, but we'll see. I'm okay for now.
Idris Elba is in final negotiations to play Duncan, also known as Man-at-Arms, in the Amazon MGM live-action feature adaptation of Masters of the Universe. Travis Knight is directing the movie that has Nicholas Galitzine set to star as He-Man, alongside Camila Mendez as Tila and Alison Brie as Evil Lynn.
Scotty, I figured I'd give someone else a chance to chime in here, but I like this, but I also have some concerns about it, because with the familiarity I have with Masters of the Universe and He-Man and the character Master-at-Arms, I think Idris Elba has it. He's got the energy. He's got that presence that works for that character. But I guess my expectation for this film and my kind of hope is that it would be similar to Thor Ragnarok in terms of its tone, because I think that would really work for He-Man. Obviously, I don't want it to be a carbon copy or anything like that, but if it could take some inspiration, that'd be really great. And then that's where I get a little concerned, because if it does do that, Idris Elba was in Thor Ragnarok, and it kind of gets muddy, and it's like, is this guy just doing the same thing all the time? Now, unfortunately, I will say that while I think Idris Elba really has the presence, like I said, He-Man has been around since the 80s, so you're going to have some fans that have some opinions and stuff like that. And he does not have the same complexion that the character has in the animated series and what have you. Not a problem for me. Shouldn't be a problem for anybody, but there will be people that take issue with that. So hopefully it doesn't get more buzz. I probably shouldn't even highlighted it, but we're doing this in real time. So.
Star Wars' upcoming live-action Skeleton Crew premiere date is now Monday, December 2nd. Following the 2-episode premiere, the rest of the 8 episodes will air on Tuesdays.
Jay,
Haley?
This is just one day, right? Didn't they just move it up one
thanks
day?
to Matt for pointing that out to me when I almost had a meltdown today about covering it.
Yeah. She was like, Mondays, no!
I was like, I can't!
Mondays are too hard! And then she realized, it's just the first one is on Monday.
Now, did we know the directors of the episodes and which episodes they were doing before this post?
I don't believe
I don't think so.
Because I don't think so either. So the way it's laid out, I got it pulled up here, is Watts is doing the first one, and then David Lowery's doing the next 2. Then the Daniels do episode 4. Then Jake Schreier does episode 5. Then Bryce Dallas Howard gets in there on episode 6, who's done a few episodes of The Mandalorian. Then Lee Isaac Chung does 7, and then John Watts does 8 to wrap it up. So that's a pretty nice collection and spread out of the episode directing. I think that makes it a little bit more interesting, and I really like the trailers that they've been showing for this. Like, I think the trailer build has been really good. I've been seeing more of it on television, and more people are talking about it and asking about it. And I don't know, at the beginning when it was described, I wasn't super in, but I'm really in right now. I'm excited for this.
Yep. This is not a rebuttal. This is a plug. We are covering it on Always Watching. So go subscribe to Always Watching, and we are going to do our best to do that first episode on Monday night, so we get it up quick, and then we'll be doing all the other episodes dropping like Thursday mornings probably. So stick around on Always Watching for that Skeleton Crew. And this is a tiny butt that I'm not allowed to give, but I'm really upset because the Daniels were listed as doing 2 episodes on IMDb, and now they're only doing 1 officially, and I'm pretty upset at IMDb for lying to me about that. Pamela Hayden, who voiced the character Milhouse on The Simpsons for 35 years, retired from the role after this Sunday's episode.
Scotty, she's been voicing this character for longer than I've been alive, so you've done your service, you've done your tenure, on to greener pastures. Thank you for your service.
Indeed.
From Sergeant Rock.
J. Scotty, the Sergeant Rock of the Stranded Panda universe. Nobody knows what it means.
It can mean what you want it to mean. That's the beauty of it.
It's evocative. Sterling K. Brown, Rita Ora, and John Kim have boarded the live-action Voltron movie that Rawson Marshall Thurber is directing for Amazon MGM Studios.
Jay, they joined the star of the movie, Henry Cavill, which we talked about a few weeks ago. So we'll just see the cast of this slowly start to grow. I mean, I don't think any of us were huge Voltron fans ultimately when we talked about this movie getting confirmed, but still, it's fun property, I think, to tread and try to do in live action, especially when you get some talent behind it.
Absolutely. Disney has released the first teaser trailer for the live-action adaptation of Lilo and Stitch. The film hits theaters on May 23rd. Nobody cares about Lilo and Stitch.
I mean, I don't know. It's just, it's what do you expect? It's picture live action Stitch. Like, I don't know.
That's not live action because that would be weird. Because he's an alien.
Yeah. Whatever. Do it in do it with puppets.
Yeah.
It would have been so much better. Would have been so much better.
Yeah, it really would have.
Bring back
it would
the
have had me
puppets.
in. Indeed. Courtney B. Vance has joined the cast of Percy Jackson and the Olympians as Zeus. The role was originally played by Lance Reddick, who died at age 60 shortly after production wrapped on season 1.
Haley, Lance Reddick taken way too early as a wonderful actor and was wonderful as Zeus. It's a very small role in season 1, but really embodied a godlike character. And so that's really sad, but the series does have to go on. So he does have to be replaced because he's very pivotal in it. And Courtney B. Vance, you might think, I don't really know that name, but you would know his face. He's been in a lot of things from The Hunt for Red October to Lovecraft Country. So I think we'll do a wonderful job picking up the pieces.
Also in Lilo and Stitch, it's coming out soon. According to IMDb.
It's crazy. Sergeant Rock, too, I heard.
Is he really in Lilo and Stitch?
Apparently, according to the Google.
I was just joking about Sergeant Rock.
He was in that FX series, The People versus O.J. Simpson, right?
I don't remember.
I feel like he was, but yeah, sorry.
Yeah, you're probably right. Also did come out on social media and say, like, he was a friend of Lance Reddick as well, and came out and talked about how he was like happy to be taking the role and felt like he was, taking on a thing that had been left behind and putting it in good hands. So that's always cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
He played Johnny Cochran in The People versus O.J. Simpson.
Oh, good call.
Makes sense. That's cool.
We would never doubt you, Scotty.
I was doubting
If
myself,
you
so-
say it, I just assume it's correct. I don't even look at IMDb.
I don't recommend that.
All right. Well, that's the show, guys. That wraps our stories for this week. Thank you guys so much for being here. Let's go around and tell everyone where they can find your stuff online. Jay Sisson.
Yeah, I'm at Commute the Podcast every week. We did have a new episode this week. We haven't decided if we'll do a new one next week. Probably not, but we're usually on Mondays. So come subscribe to Commute the Podcast if you haven't.
Sweet. And Haley Hobbs.
Yep. Find me at Source Pages on Always Watching, covering 3 different shows because that was a choice that I made that I'm very happy about, truly. And then Ashley and I on Hate Watch on Twitch, twitch.tv/strandedpandatv. We're doing a couple extra ones this year, and we have an announcement for the next year coming up.
Ooh. Exciting. And J. Scotty St. Clair.
Yeah, for your animation needs, you can check out Animation Deliberation, the podcast that takes action, animation, and cartoons seriously, but not too seriously. And one of the 3 shows being covered on Always Watching currently is Silo Season 2. So I'm grateful to be a part of that coverage.
Sweet. You can find me all over the network, mostly on Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast every week. But I'm really excited about doing that Always Watching coverage of Skeleton Crew starting on Monday. So we'll be around for that. And stick around here if you're, hit the subscribe button in whatever app you're using if you like this show. It helps us out, and do some 5-star review things. You can apparently do it on Spotify. One day we'll tell you guys how to do that.
You can leave nice comments on Spotify.
You can.
on each episode.
All right, guys. Well, we'll be back soon. Peace. Peace.
You stay classy, Multiverse.
Hey, YouTube, thank you for watching here on YouTube. We really appreciate you. If you would, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. You comment down below is always really helpful and keeps the conversation going after the show. And last week we asked for you in the YouTube comments, how do you want to have the Scarlet Witch brought back in the MCU? We got a couple. Bob Zombie 3000 said, I want to see Agatha persuade Billy to try to bring her back like he did with Tommy. That'd be interesting. I'd get like a zombie Wanda thing going. I like it. Sherman Smith said, I would bring back the Scarlet Witch by introducing an alternate universe Wanda Maximoff. That's cool. That's interesting. I've heard a lot of people say they don't want that because it wouldn't be the same character, but I think it's cool. It's cool. I like it that Sherman Smith wants something different. I think the freshness of a new Wanda could be very interesting. For this week, hey, we're doing all this. We got Barbenheimer, we got Glicket. What two movies would you combine? Like if you were a executive sitting on your throne trying to create the kind of cultural moment, what two movies would you put out on the same day, and what would be your portmanteau? That's going to be a fun one. Let's see what you got in the comments, guys.